Hello, hola, bonjour. This week we're talking all about journal activities for language learning, and we're focusing again this week on activities for that novice level or A. Basically, any activity can be adapted to A, B, C, or actual novice, intermediate, advanced by really just changing the length of the task, the depth of the task. Think, words and phrases, sentences into paragraphs, paragraphs into connected paragraphs for those three major ranges. So, the very first activity that we're going to talk about is really chunks. So, having a journal, if you're a beginner, I think it's really important to focus on chunks of meaningful language. There are probably other ways to phrase this, maybe words and phrases for survival might be another way to look at it. But to get communicating, you want to learn language in chunks. So what that means is any bit of vocabulary that is going to be helpful, right? It's going to every word and every phrase that you master and every grammar point that you master is going to help you communicate, have a repertoire, a toolbox of things to take from, to use to communicate. Really, that's the bottom line. To get started, you need to have some things to say, quite obviously. And so you need to focus on not just words and phrases, but you really want to make it count. So you want words and phrases that are going to get you things. I love phrase books for this reason. I'll link to some of mine with audio. And because I just think they're super useful. You want to think about chunks you need to do certain tasks. So, for example, what are the chunks that you would need in a restaurant? I need, I want, I would like, right? And think about all the different contexts. Think about transportation. What chunk would you need to be able to take a taxi in your target language, for example, right? Or what a chunk could be kind of a sentence starter. So, for example, I like, I want, and then you can add different verbs on it to be able to communicate those ideas. So a journal activity can be chunks for different tasks that you have, right? So each week maybe pick a task that you'd like to master and then write down the words and phrases, the chunks that you need to be able to complete that task. And what's really helpful, what you can do with that activity is you can turn this into a there's some great journals that have paper journals, because I think there's a lot of value in that, the hand to brain writing things down to be able to um, take your notes that you've written down and actually put them in an app. I want to say, is it Oxford? I should look it up. um, I used it last year and I enjoyed it, that you can easily scan your handwritten notes. It has these notebooks that have kind of a corresponding app, and I'm sure there's plenty of them out there, and there's probably more coming out all the time. I'm looking at my phone right now to see the name of that app, and I can't find it. But regardless, you can still take a picture or scan your chunks from your notebook, and then they're right there on your phone for whatever your situations, right? So if I'm at a restaurant and I need it, I've got all my chunks. There's some other interesting things that you can do with these, but you can just have them right there on your phone. So that they're ready to go when you are. And back to the journal, back to the actual paper journal. I love to use journals to write dialogues. And this obviously works great in language classes as well. All of these activities work well in language classes. So taking chunks, You might design it a little bit differently with a larger group of people, of course, um, but they're definitely worth doing. Taking those chunks and making dialogues, maybe you want to have a dialogue checking into a hotel, or a dialogue where people are meeting and greeting for the first time, and you're going to take those chunks and tasks, or words and chunks and phrases that you're learning to create, to be able to communicate in different situations, and write dialogues, right? What would people say to each other? And then practice it, right? Practice both parts. It's a really great way to maximize any time on your own. And then when you're able to be with you're a target language speaker, or be in a situation like on italki or whatever, you're going to have more of these things to draw from. I want to talk a little bit about the gold list method. I absolutely love notebooks for languages. They're so useful. And there's so much to talk about. Lydia Makova, I think she's really amazing with her really practical, really great advice out there for learners. You should definitely check her out. She does a whole video about the gold list method, and basically it's got this wonderfully relaxing vibe, because it's not about memorizing. So we talked about some intense ways to really nail down, really solid understanding of a set word, number of words and phrases in a very short amount of time. It requires a bit of intensity. This doesn't. This is, she explains it. She uses it a lot. Sort of sitting down, and you know, you're going over sets of words, and reviewing in this notebook. So have your own notebook dedicated to the gold list method, where you're practicing essentially a set of words, and recalling what you don't know in a kind of relaxed way. Really interesting. I love journals for all kinds of doodling activities, and we'll get more into depth in a few other videos about some of them, but because they work at all different levels, and they work using input, they work using output, but essentially creating doodle pages of vocabulary, it really helps get it into your brain. So you might have a page where you've got a set of words and phrases you want to learn, and you're going to draw what that vocabulary would represent without any of your native language there. So perhaps you want to learn vocabulary to talk about a specific theme. You would doodle on a page those vocab words. Or if you have a book that is presenting a certain set of vocab, you can use that to really solidify what you're doing. So again, it's that hand to brain. So taking a set of words and a theme, you're putting it in your journal, you're doing a doodle for each thing, and you're really interacting with the vocabulary, and you'll remember it. Oh, next week we're going to talk about activities that are a little bit more geared towards intermediate. They don't have to be used in intermediate, but they work really well, specifically for that level in journals. Until next time.